Hello and welcome to the England Rugby podcast with O2 Inside Line. I'm Dylan Hartley, and this week I'm joined by the master, Eddie Jones, and Red Roses head coach, Simon Middleton.
Hey Dylan, how are you, mate?
The boss man.
How are you, mate? All right?
I'm all right, thanks, boss. How are you?
Battling on, mate.
So Eddie, from England's point of view and your point of view, how do you reflect on your tournament?
Yeah, look, we had a poor tournament, mate. Really disappointed in our performance. We got off to a bad start against Scotland. I felt we were underprepared. Italy, we played okay, and then Wales it's hard to gauge the Wales game because, and you know more than anyone, when you get two difficult decisions at the start of the game, that puts you on the back foot, and we fought hard to get back and couldn't sustain it. Played well against France, and then Ireland, a bit like the Wales game. It was just one of those tournaments where things didn't seem to go right for us.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, the tournament's difficult if you don't get it right from that first game. It's always fine margins and small things in games that obviously lead to results. Let's look for a positive in your eyes. What were you happy about with the tournament? What did you learn about England?
Well, I learned a lot about the players. We've had a reasonably settled side since the back end of 2018 now, and there's always going to be some movement in the team. So I had some younger guys come in who came in and did really well, and I was really pleased the way the senior players looked after the junior players coming in and made it a very positive experience for them. So that was a good thing. We're also in the process of trying to develop a game for the 2023 where, at our best estimate, we think it's going to be similar rugby to what we had to play against France. Fast pitches, sunshine. There's going to be a combination of, the set piece attritional game plus some ball movement. So we've moved down that track a little bit, opened up our game a little bit, which has made us a bit more vulnerable, but some good signs there.
Isn't it hard to kind of predict what's going to be happening in a couple of years and kind of start influencing the way you play, but also trying to, because the style of rugby at the moment is obviously different to what it's going to be in 2023, right? So how do you kind of strike that balance of win now, but also with an eye on 2023, trying to play or predict what that's going to be?
Yeah, it's a bit like being out in the surf, mate. Yeah, you got to predict where the big waves coming and get in position and get on it. Yeah, and there's a lot of markers that are showing at the moment that that's the way the game's going to go. Your mates back in Rotorua, all the Kiwis want the game to be faster, and every rule in Super Rugby New Zealand, Super Rugby Australia is about making the game faster. We're in entertainment sport now. Everyone wants the game to be more exciting and faster. So I think it's almost inevitable that's going to happen. To what extent, you don't know. But we want to make sure we're down the track and ready to go, so we don't have to at the last minute make massive tactical adaptations to our game. What
about you? Like we talked about the team a bit. What about challenges for you? What have you found this tournament's been? What have you learned about yourself? Have you, because you're the master, mate. You're always learning. You're always improving. You're always reading, talking, podcasting. You got about 10 different screens in your office. You're talking to everyone. You must be challenged. I'd like to know if you've had anything this tournament. I mean, coaching from a laptop at one point.
Yeah, well, I think one of the most difficult things was I was always catching up this tournament, having gone into camp late. And you know what it's like, your first camp, we only got 4 days, and I wasn't there until the third day. And then we had a blizzard on the fourth day. So we couldn't train properly. And I felt I was always catching up because, as you know as well, you got players from 12 different clubs and you're trying to get them on the same page, and the amount of time you spend with each other was minimised. So I'm not using that as an excuse, but I must admit I found that very difficult.
Yeah, I was thinking, so obviously new players, I'm thinking like your David Ribbons, Alex Mitchell that I know quite well. You obviously, you're a people's person, you know what I mean? You like talking to people, getting to know them. Did you find that hard with you've obviously got your established players that you do know, but forming and building new relationships and making a good estimate of new characters?
Yeah, I think it was hard for everyone, mate, because rugby's a game of action on the field and then the interaction off the field. And in the old days, it used to be over beers. Nowadays, it's over a nice flat white to see, whether you can make a nice silver fern or you can make a nice heart on the flat white. And the early part of the tournament, we weren't even allowed to do that. So it's hard to get to know those blokes. And as the relationship part of the game, particularly in English rugby, where I found it much more difficult than any other team because the clubs are their lives. It's not like you play in Australia, you play for the Brumbies for 6 months and then you go. And it's not your life you play, it's a team you play for. Whereas here, the club you play for is your life, isn't it? You're in there like 300 days a week. It's your local area, and breaking down those rivalries is always a challenge. And I think we've managed to do that pretty well, but it probably took us longer this time to get that little bit of, when you fit together and you got a good feel about you.
I get that because I've experienced it. I've experienced it in England that's been quite divisive and split and in those kind of club camps. But I could testify to the England that I experienced with you and talking to the boys now. It's very much Team England. There's some great relationships there. And I think it's testament to your senior players of how welcoming they are. But you've always, every player I talk to that's worked with you, you've got like a special bond or relationship, a carrot or a stick, or there's always some funny like anecdote that's tied with, meeting Eddie for the first time. Where did you form your skill of kind of motivating players? Because like if you look at Benny Youngs, you chucked a box of Haribo at him. Luke Cowan-Dickey had a crate of Guinness.
He's still got it, I think.
Has he? But everyone I talk to has got like a little story. When did you work that out, and where did it come from?
Oh, look, it goes back a long way, mate. When I first graduated from university, I was a trained PE teacher, but no one quit PE, so you couldn't get a job. The best job in the world in Australia. You're down the beach at 3:30 and always in the sun. So I had to teach, I think you call it supply teaching here. And I had to teach mathematics. And of course, the teachers always have the day off when they got their worst classes. It's always the bottom level of year 9 boys where all the hormones pumping through their bodies. And the last thing they want to learn about is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So I had to learn pretty quickly how to pick out characters in a room and try to establish a relationship with those guys, and because they were the guys that would either make it a hell of a 40 minutes or you could have an enjoyable 40 minutes. So I think it started there, and and I was lucky enough to grow up in the era where we played rugby and all our talking afterwards was done over a beer, and we'd spend a hell of a lot of time together. So there was always that interaction between the players and even the coaches at that stage.
I was going to say a rugby team basically is a group of year 9 boys. What about you? So I experienced this in a leadership role, but you're the ultimate leader. You're the boss. Everyone looks to you. So, after a win, it's good. It's all, everything's moving. Sundays, Mondays, it just moves. It's easy, Yeah. Well, after a loss, you're human. I've always wondered this, do you have to pick yourself up? Do you have to look in the mirror and go, right, let's go, let's get back on it? Or as you've got older in your wise old years, have you just got used to it? Or what's the story?
I wish I did, mate. Never get used to it. Like Saturday night, I probably slept about 2 hours, feeling sorry for myself, get up. And I try to make it by the time I have a shave, I'm ready to go. And so you use all that time to think. I had a phone call with Craigie about 7 o'clock, just to throw some ideas around, and then you're back into it, mate. Smiles on, energy's back, face is shaven. Hopefully, you haven't got too many cuts on it, and away you go. So
I know that you love rugby. You love talking about rugby. You like working rugby, coaching rugby. You like rugby. Do you do anything to get away from the game, to stay balanced, to stay sharp, to give yourself that kind of respite?
Well, I watch other sports, and normally the wife's here, so she she watches the game. She loves the game, but never talks about rugby. So that's always the way. So it's pretty easy for me. And one of the reasons I've been able to stay in the game for a period of time is because I've got good focus. I think players and coaches are the same, mate. The more success you have, the more likely you are to get distracted. And I haven't allowed myself to get distracted. And I love watching Super Rugby New Zealand. That's relaxation for me. I love watching the ball being tossed around. They play with such freedom, and everyone wants to play like that. As an Australian Super Rugby coach, we wanted to play like that. And even now more so, they're probably this contrast. So that's always relaxing. It's fresh. It's exciting. And match of the day, mate, in the football. I love that as well.
Yeah, but when you're watching the sport, do you just unwind, or are you watching it from a tactical point of view, a mindset point of view? Are you looking to see who maintains momentum? Are you able to just relax, or are you always on, just watching for those little cues?
Yeah, probably most of the time I watch it as a coach of one of the teams and try to work out what they're doing. In the well coached teams, you can always work out pretty quickly what they're trying to do. It's a good exercise, and then if I know the coach, I'll send him a text and say, is this right? So it's a bit of fun that keeps you engaged. I don't see it as work at all.
Nice. This campaign, naturally, there's always talk. And I know it's just talk and noise, but there's talk about coaches, there's talk about captaincy. Can you explain to me what you see or what you want in your captain? Because everyone, I experience this, everyone wants to pick their favourite player to be captain, but there's a whole lot more depth to it. It's like a bloody onion. It can go on and on and on. What do you ultimately want from your captain?
Yeah, well, it depends on the situation. For instance, with you, mate, I needed a bloke that had a bit of balls, so to speak. Was prepared to put himself out there, get the team together, good, hard player. So it set the role. And at the moment, we want someone who can lead from the front. He's got to be a constant selection in the side, and he needs to be someone now that's got good skills at bringing the players together, particularly in this period, and then thirdly be a very good delegator, mate. Because the job's getting more and more complex. Rugby's getting more and more complex. Remember when you used to kick the ball down the field and you just used to chase after it? And now you've got, every formation there is on kick chase, and it's become an art form in itself. So all of those things mean that the captain has to have people to look after all those areas for him.
Now, what you're saying, like the on-field captain, there's a lot of, with the challenge coming in, there's so many laws, like, and the ways to interact with the referees now. They review everything. I would hate to be a captain now. There's a lot more to it than even it just moves so quick in a couple of years. Aside from hitting your straps playing, I reckon there's about 90% of the role is unseen. It's the off-field, bringing people together, setting the tone in training, making sure the team's organised, the mindset's right for the week. You're nodding away, so I'm hoping you're agreeing with me.
100%, mate. You could write a book on the art of captaincy, mate. That could be your next project.
Mate, anyone can write a book these days.
That's true.
More from Eddie in just a second, but here's Red Rose's head coach, Simon Middleton. You guys obviously got your Six Nations set alone. You've got your own calendar now, which I personally think is brilliant. It's obviously working a bit different this year with 2 games, though. Just you straight into 2 games off the bat, right?
Yeah.
How do you approach that in terms of, you've obviously had time off. You can't build into the tournament. You've got to hit the ground running, surely.
Yeah, we're straight into Scotland at home, and then we go to Italy. But I think we've changed quite a bit of our training over the last probably last 8 months, to be honest, through the autumn internationals and then through this year, and we've brought a lot more physicality to our trainings, a lot more intensity. We've reshaped how we go about stuff. You know what it's like. You reach a point where you're just ready to play anyway. You feel like you can't train anymore. So we're really ready, keen as mustard to get going, and because of how we've approached some of our training, we're really confident we'll be able to drop in and play an intensity we want to right from the off.
Was that born out of trying to evolve the program, or was that born of born out of not having games?
Born out of evolving the programme. Probably about 8 months ago, I sort of sat back and I had a look at where I thought we were programme-wise and how we could move it to the next sort of level. And ultimately, you are what you train at. And I looked at how we were training and where our decision making was put under pressure and where our skills were being put under pressure. And the answer was that probably not enough in training situations, and it sort of always fell to being in a game. So we had a change of S&C at that particular point. We had a change of forwards coach at that particular point. And the guy who came in and joined us, Alex Martin, was ex-Leicester Tigers S&C. Really, really keen, had some great ideas about how we do pressure training and what that revolved around. So it fit perfectly with what I wanted to do with the girls. And I just wanted to take our strength and conditioning more onto the field. And I sort of came up with this bit of a philosophy about field fatigue familiarization, which is basically what it says. It's about being fatigued on the field and making your decisions and executing on the field and being comfortable doing that. Because so much of our stuff was probably done off the field, our strength and conditioning. So we've gone, I don't know, maybe you call it a little bit old school, but we've really gone into high intensity physical training sessions where the girls put under a lot of pressure, generally through fatigue, but we can see how that's started to build up now through various facets. We mix and match some of the challenges through the sessions, and we're starting to bear fruit. I would say last week was our best training session. We've had some good ones, we've had some bad ones as well. So yeah, we've reshaped things, and I can't wait to see how we go in a game situation.
Are you measuring it by feedback from the players? Are you measuring it by your sort of feel, your eyes, or are you guided by GPS, numbers, strength, speed, all these sorts of things, or a combination of all?
Yeah, it's a combination of everything. I mean, the metrics, the physical metrics we pull out are massive. We cover everything on the GPS, from collisions to high speed running, meters per second, everything, and then it's broken down by position. And we've gone through a process where we do a lot of head-to-head stuff. So everything we do is put out there for everybody to see. So the girls are very much upfront with each other. Everybody can see who's doing what on the field at any one time. And whereas the stats are be all and end all, they give you a good indication of how, certainly what the trends are in how you're progressing your physical state. And it's been exactly as we wanted it to be. So we do metric-wise, we're doing massively. We get a lot of feedback from the players. We've got a strategy group that changes depending on who's selected for the games. We've got a consistent group called the Thorns, which they're the conduit between the players and the staff. And they give some really good feedback. They do some great work and allow us to adapt how we train. So after every batch of training, if there isn't a competition, or if there's a competition, they'll do a review, and we sit down and we go through it and look at the things that have worked and the things that haven't. And then I suppose the key bit for me is the gut feel bit and what you see as a coach and what as a coaching group. So we debrief on the field after every session, and then we debrief more thoroughly through the week before we come into camp again. And what you see and what you feel count for a lot. So you put all that into the funnel, and hopefully you can get a bit of progression out of the other end every week.
So 3 titles in 4 years, couple of Grand Slams, and you come in 6-8 months ago and just say, we're going to train harder. Like surely were you met with, well, what we're doing is working, or did you make it uncomfortable for people? Was the group on board with the change? Did you let them know about it, or did you just kind of ramp it up?
Well, to be honest, you're always looking at trying to develop your training, and one of the things about the girls are that they are hugely progressive. They understand that to sit still is to go backwards, and they have a massive thirst for developing themselves individually and collectively as a team. And they know where we sit in terms of where we compete against some sides, where we compete against other sides, and where we compete against ourselves. And as it actually turned out, we came off the back of the Autumn Internationals, and one of the things they did feedback was that they didn't felt challenged enough in enough training sessions, which was great because we'd sort of already sat around and kicked this idea about. So it was like, fantastic. That's, we got buy-in before we start. I'm not quite sure they were quite aligned to what we were about to bring in. But to be honest, one of the things about them, they have an unbelievable training ethic. They love a challenge. I don't think I've ever challenged them and then not come up to the mark. You know, they know how to raise the bar, and I think it's like anything. It's finding different ways of doing it, and they've got a real love-hate relationship. We do this session on a Wednesday called PPP, which is physical pressure practice, and it's just, you know, real high intensity, high physical, full contact rugby, and they've got a real love-hate relationship.
I do love that. All you coaches do the same. You just basically find fancy words or phrases to rephrase contact training. And as a player, like, it's murder, but it's essential to preparations, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And particularly when, you know, you're trying to move the squad on, and it's so long between competitions, and particularly over the last sort of year, you know, 14 months, when competition's been sporadic and a little bit unpredictable, and so it's been great, and it's a great way of creating competition as well.
So on that, you obviously haven't played since November. How have you kept the girls motivated, and you know, what have you done in camp together in such a short space to kind of get everyone aligned? Have you got challenges that you've been doing? How have you stayed connected during the last few months?
Through lockdown, we've had loads of different ways of staying connected, different groups working, some on strategy stuff, some on cultural stuff, some just on fun stuff. And I mean, things we've got going at the moment, and this is, you know, this is what I mean about the girls are ingenious in what they come up, and other times they just think really logically about how they can keep engaged and how they can build their relationship. So they come up with an idea the other day. We've had a significant number of injuries. At one time, for a significant time, we had about a third of the squad out injured.
Was that a good thing for you?
Yeah, I think so. You know, you don't want to see anybody injured, but the players we've brought in have increased the strength and depth massively of the squad. And it's also, you know, we adapted one of Eddie's ideas about bringing the under-20s in as apprentices, to be honest. And that's been absolutely fantastic, because the under-20s program's obviously been impacted, like all the pathway has, by COVID. So it's allowed us to identify some of the players who were probably there or thereabouts before COVID hit, and we've brought them in. And obviously we've looked after them in the camps, but it's accelerated their development. You know, from that point of view, that's been great. But with the players that we had injured, you know, the girls just came up with an idea. Right, Sunday morning we're gonna have a meeting. Every Sunday morning we're gonna have a Skype meeting, a Skype call, where we get all the players on who are injured, reconnect with them, tell them, just talk about whatever we want to talk about. Some of it's strategy stuff, in which case we'll get coaches on. Some of it's just about, you know, what they've been doing in terms of lockdown and things like that. So that's just a typical example of how they stay connected together. Every Friday we have psychology sessions, group psychology sessions, where, you know, we're talking all about performance. It's all performance driven. At the moment, we're working on communication and decision making at speed on the field, which is great. You know, they split the group up into 4 different groups, and they have a compete to win every week. So Sarah McKenna, who is so off the wall, it's unbelievable, just comes up with some unbelievable stuff. And every week,
give me the best. What's the best so far?
Oh man, so
or the most outrageous?
Let me think. Outrageous. Well, it was quite outrageous the other day, because after we thought we'd flogged them at PPP, they came in and they set the whole of the inside up of Penny Hill Park and had a game of like it was like volleyball tennis or volleyball football. So we were like, well, it can't be that good. So there was like a bit of that. Then she had another idea where she wanted to they wanted to do a golf chipping contest. Like at Penny Hill. I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure that's going to go down well. They were going to chip off the banking down onto the field to targets on the field. I'm like, mate, I'm not quite sure. So then they rearranged it and did it inside on the 4G inside.
Do you turn a blind eye at these times, or have you got medical staff that advise against these things? As the boss, do you just say do what you want?
I just say do what you want, and the medical staff have meltdown. Yeah, basically, that's pretty much.
You saw basically if you pull a hip flexor or something kicking the ball front row, it's your fault.
Oh man, yeah, no, we keep a close eye on some of the stuff they're doing for sure, but it's that bit where you everything's risk and reward. It's not particularly high risk, the stuff they do. It's and you think about some of the, you know, the relief that they get from just loosening it up a little bit, and everybody needs it these days, don't they? Because it's, you know, world's crazy.
Yeah, I know. What about like you know, physical preparations? I'm thinking about your front rowers, you know, adaptations in the Premier 15s, and then going to Six Nations. Like the girls haven't scrummaged, right?
Yeah.
Traditionally, you'd scrummage once a week, and this is kind of like a culture change that we went through under Eddie. We started scrummaging live every day, and at first it's kind of met with, what are we doing? But by the end of it, a couple of months in, you're conditioned to do it, and it's just normal. How are you getting those girls ready for what's to come?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think that was the thing that was shown up in the autumns and the Six Nations more than anything with us. We are under the adapted laws. You're probably getting 3-4 scrums a game now, and you know the AP15 coaches, the club coaches, you know, look at that and they're portioned their work accordingly in terms of training. So they do it's not just they don't get it in the games, they get very little of it in training as well. So the cumulative effect is we played in the Six Nations, we came unstuck in the autumn internationals, we came unstuck against almost every pack we come up against, not categorically, but there were moments where we wouldn't have expected to see that. Came under a lot of pressure against pretty much all the packs at some point or another.
So obviously the big tournament in New Zealand has also been put back to next year. It is next year, 2022. How's it made you rethink your program? Or are you kind of just focusing on what you can do now and growing to that? Or has it had you, let me rephrase that. Let me re-say that. Has it made you rethink your whole program? Or are you still on the same path, but just knocked it back a year?
Yeah, I think what it has done, it's bought us some much needed time. The first thing we did was to get the girls to focus on the Six Nations, because it's really easy to then go to just look 12 months, you know, another 12 months. We just carry on doing what we're doing. It wasn't that long ago we lost Katie Daly-McLean. You know, she retired, and players like that take some replacing. You know, first receiver was a challenge for us. We got some good players in there, but we haven't got anybody with 130 caps like Katie and can pull the strings like Katie could pull. So it's definitely bought us some time in that area where we can regenerate some players.
Did you know about it?
Oh,
Was it kind of planned? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke over a year ago about it. So Katie had just become a parent, and she knew the dynamics of her world were going to change. She moved from Loughborough to Sale to be close to home. And she wanted to try that model and see if she could still strike a balance that allowed her to be the international player she wanted to be. She's unbelievably honest, is Katie. So once she got through, it was the final game at Twickenham in the Six Nations when we beat France right at the end. And after that game, I just knew. I was speaking to her, we were sat in a press conference after, and I just knew that the way that game had gone for her and her reaction to it, something was going to happen. And fair play, she dropped an email to me and Nikki and just said, look, can we have a meeting? I just want to have a chat to you. And she came online and she just said, I can't be the player that you need based on the speed the program's moving at now and the direction my life's moving, you know, and she made a really considered opinion, and we respected it massively. And,
well, that's unbelievable honesty. You know, a lot of players would very selfishly try and hang on. I'm looking in the mirror here, but for her to admit, because she's still playing great footy, you know, like So on that, where do you see your squad at now compared to a year ago?
Well, I mean that position in particular, where we already got, you know, Zoe Harrison, who's been an understudy to Katie for a couple of seasons now, and we've sort of played 10 and 12. But obviously the sort of sad demise of the sevens under the COVID issues has been a massive benefit for us in terms of 15s, because we had Helen Rowland, who was with the sevens program, and Meg Jones have both come back in. And they're both, I mean, Jones is more of a 12, I think, than a first receiver, but she's playing first receiver for Wasp, and she's absolutely smashing it out of the park. Last few weeks, she was unbelievable. They played Loughborough yesterday. It was one of the best women's club games I've seen. And Jones is at the middle of it all. Helen is playing on the other side. Very different players. But we've actually got some real strength in depth there. but it's fairly raw. So that's where the 12 months gives us some real opportunities. I think that's true across the whole squad. We got some fantastic talent coming through. We sat down with the coaches the day before yesterday and went through the potential permutations for the Six Nations. And like we go through and then we go, wow, we've not even got any game minutes for player X or Y. And she would walk into most international sides. So then you revisit and you look again. And that's where we're placed. We got great strength against pretty much all our positions now. Our centres are a little bit skinny. But then again, we got a couple, if we choose to play Jonesy at 12 rather than 10. Amber Reid's been out for a while, was playing great rugby before she got injured. So if Amber comes back in, we're in good shape, Dylan. We got great strength in depth. Great strength.
I was going to say, has your job got harder in the 5-6 years that you've done it in terms of selecting? Obviously, the game going, the girls being full-time professional, Premier 15s, just more talent, more accessibility to good players, a higher standard of rugby, developing players. Has it made your job a lot harder? Obviously better, but has it made it more difficult?
Yeah, absolutely. 2015, 2014, 2015, you probably had 2 or 3 tough decisions to make in terms of who started and who finished. Now, we line up 2 sides against each other. And I would say 12, 13 positions, you could move them across and someone would be knocking on your door asking why they're not in. It is unbelievably difficult, the selection now. But like you say, that's exactly what you want as a coach. And there's a whole host of young players just coming up behind them who are knocking on the door. And in 12 months' time, some of them will be very, very much in the fray.
Brilliant. Well, I'm really excited to watch you in your upcoming campaign. Good luck and best wishes. Final question is, did we play against each other? Leeds Tykes, mate, around 04, 05. I played 1 game for Worcester. I claim to be a one-club man at Northampton, but they put out the bomb squad up in a Pelgian Cup game. I'm trying to work out whether you're on the field that day.
I'll have been in the coaching box, mate. I was probably long retired by then, I think. It wouldn't have been when we were in the Prem. I was never good enough for Rugby Union Prem. Super League, by the time I'd finished, I think they'd had my best days as a rugby player.
How many games did you play at Tigers?
About 185.
It's not a contact sport, is it? It's a collision sport. It's different to Union. But, mate, thank you so much for your time. That was Red Rose's head coach, Simon Middleton. Now, back to my chat with Eddie Jones. We picked up on something saying you're resetting the squad. What sort of changes would you like to implement going forward? Obviously, it's a day after and it's not got forensic quite yet, but have you got any sort of big pieces of the pie you'd like to change?
Well, it's not specific. It'll basically, we've had players that have been through a World Cup cycle. Some have been through 2, and it's finding out the players that have got the real hunger to really fight and want to be at their absolute best for the next World Cup. So for those players, that have been the 1 or 2 World Cups, that's what we're looking for, to see whether they got that or not. And then looking for the young blokes who can come through and adapt pretty quickly. The young guy from up the road from you yesterday, George Martin, he's 19 years of age, 19. And, he came on and played 20 minutes, didn't miss a beat. He had a good night with the boys last night. They had a bit of an old-fashioned night last night. And he had a great time this morning. He wakes up and he's a holder of an England cap, so it's lovely to see that, and if he keeps developing, mate, he could be a 25 capper by 2023.
Okay, nice. And what about you? Got any personal goals? Anything you'd like to achieve?
Yeah, well, just over the next period of time, the big thing is getting this selection right, getting this transition of the squad right, and we want to play a game again where we shape the game of rugby. There's no doubt that the way we defended has become normal now in world rugby. And I think, under Paul Gustard and then under Mad Mitch, we've taken that forward, but now it's quite normal for most teams to do that. And we want to shape the game again, and it might be in this getting this balance right between having a strong set piece and kicking game and then being able to play like the Kiwis off kick return. How would that be?
Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be the complete game, wouldn't it? But your words, not mine. I don't think we ever see the perfect game of rugby, do we?
No, but that's the aim, mate. You always got to chase it, mate. It's like that. It's like that perfect wave the surfers go after. You always got to chase it, mate.
Yeah, I wouldn't be seen in the surf either. Obviously, Lions tour year. Let's just hope and pretend and imagine it's going ahead. What does that do for you? Does that give you opportunity? Obviously, would like to see as many England players on that tour. Does that provide opportunity? You know, I throw it back to 2017. Tom Curry was my roommate, and if you look at him now, he's a brilliant player. He's really well-rounded, got a good attitude, good work ethic, and he's, in my opinion, a world-class player. He stands out, you know. What's your view on this year if that Lions tour goes ahead and it provides opportunity? Is there any kind of, have you got your eye on a group of players or?
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. I'm going to be up and down the freeways for the next 3 or 4 weeks, busily scouting. We've got a list of about 10 or 12 players we're going to look at. So it's pretty exciting, you know, and it's great. As you know, in Argentina in 2017, it was a great tour. The older guys, really enjoyed the tour, I think, and bringing those younger guys through.
I don't want you to name any players, but can you name any players that kind of excite you? Like, if you think about the younger guys, the George Martins that are probably already in your squad, but are waiting in the wings. Is there anyone else that you'd like to see?
Yeah, look, there's some good young guys, particularly in the 9s and 10s. And that's the hardest area to adapt to Test rugby. So we're going to have a good look. But there's, young 10s like Atkinson, Marcus Smith. There's another Smith at Worcester, Finn Smith. They're all young guys. Simmons at Exeter. They're all going to possibly have an opportunity to step up to the plate. So it's the toughest position in world rugby at the moment, number 10. You got so much pressure, so little time and space, a lot of decisions to make. So fantastic opportunity for one of the young guys to step up.
I think it's a good opportunity to talk about a bit of reason here and balance, because you've just listed 5 guys, but then you include your existing fly halves, and you're not in control of who goes on that Lions tour, are you? No. Does Gats give you a heads up, or is it just he names his team? So
he's a tough man from Waikato, mate. They don't give away too much.
Yeah, but so those opportunities might not come in certain positions because certain people might not go on the Lions, right?
But then we might rest a few if that's the case, because we're really keen to bring some younger guys through. As I said, it's the right time for us at the moment. We'll probably, from the squad in 2019, about 60 to 70% of that squad will go through, depending on their desire. And then the other 30%, we've got to find players who can be better than the blokes who are there. Yeah,
I think one of the other things it's almost like, I'd be interested if you've got a number. I'll put you under pressure here. Well, you can't take 30 20-year-olds, can you? Because you need a balance. You need to strike a balance of experience, because I suppose for our listeners, you can't expect those players to know what it looks like to play for England. They don't know how to train for England. They don't know how to prepare for an international and recover from an international. They don't know how to conduct themselves. So have you kind of got a number of how much experience?
All the data shows you need an average age of about 28 and an average number of caps of about 40 to 45. So, it's not a mathematical equation as such, but we're always looking at the balance of that. So, for instance, against Ireland, we had an average age of, I think it was 26.6 and an average number of caps of 40. So we're still got some growth in terms of that team, and that's a great thing for us, even given the number of experienced players we've got. Okay. So we can bring a number of those young guys through. So if you've got a squad of 33, you want to bring about 4 or 5 young guys through and use them as project players.
I think that kind of answers my next question. I was looking forward to 2023, wondering where your team would be. But can you give me that number in caps again? How many caps do you want your World Cup final team?
It's about average number of about 40 to 45 caps, and average age of about 28. So that's what we're moving towards, mate.
Okay. Do you see Wales last night? I think they're into the thousands with caps.
Yeah, they're maxed right out, mate. And what I see, particularly in Northern Hemisphere rugby, is you can run about a 2-year cycle, and then the players get, I don't know whether it's physical exhaustion, I think it's more mental exhaustion, and they need to have a little they have to have a little bit of a break and then regenerate again. And Wales had that poor season last year, didn't they?
Well, I look back to you know what, when I talk about my retirement, Eddie, everyone was like, Dylan Hartley, 2016 Grand Slam, 2017 back-to-back champions. no one mentions 2018. I captained that side to a 5th place. And do you know what? I think it was instrumental into your success in Japan.
100%.
Do you know what? I'm a man of reason. I'm a balanced man. I understand it, but there's a lot of people that don't. And just like getting banned or injured, sometimes your biggest lessons, the best lessons are the hardest ones, right?
Yeah, no, 100%, mate.
Let's finish. Let's get you off to eat your Nando's or whatever you got. Give me a highlight from this campaign for you. Favorite takeaway?
The French game, mate. I thought it was an outstanding game of rugby. There was 8 million people watching it. Nip and tuck, good physical battle up front, and then some good ball movement. And, Maro to cap would have been a horrendous 2 weeks for him, scores the match-winning try.
Brilliant.
That's not a bad piece of theatre, is it?
And just how interesting is the Six Nations, that team that you beat might go on to win the bloody thing. So,
yeah.
Eddie, thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure. Keep grafting.
We'll keep grafting, mate. I know you don't graft too hard on that estate of yours, so we'll graft for you, mate.
I've been grafting all day. This is Sunday and I'm grafting.
Good on you, mate. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, boss.